officially.
Are you getting something to drink? Are you having something to drink?
There's a thing you can write. There's a pen.
Oh, now we have.
On that one,
Okay,
if
great.
you want.
Thank you. Well, excuse me.
Brought me back to my point that education intelligence is wealth.
Yes, in a sense, yes.
Because
You got noise over there.
Yeah, I know. Try to keep it down, please. Okay, guys. Go and pick it up where it was.
you brought me
But
back
yes.
to the point where education
thank
and
you.
intelligence is wealth. Because if you have individuals, let us say college graduates, young people who are entrepreneurs, they could create more wealth, similar to the way the Israelis have done over the last half century, by going into the great American desert, cultivating it, making it green, and making it produce food.
Very good.
It is an excellent place to have oceanic farming right there in the middle of the desert. We could have shrimp, which is a commodity desired by a great population of Americans, willing to pay for it. Lobsters and all these other seafood, crustaceans, which could be grown in the middle of the desert, as well as housing. The Israelis have proved this technology by greening the desert and have made it very productive. Similarly, the Israelis have shown that they can have non-ecological wealth by establishing a Silicon Valley in northern Italy. They're producing wealth where they don't
In northern
need
Italy,
real
where? I
estate
didn't know that.
per se.
In northern Italy, where? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the northern part of Israel.
Oh, northern part, northern part of Israel. Okay.
Israel,
yeah.
yeah. It's
The Golan Heights.
No, not that far north.
Mhm.
Lower. Anyway, they are producing computers and programs and digital technology which provides computers for Europe. Israel is the Florida and the California of Europe.
I was very impressed. I was there
But
a generation ago. I was very
here-
impressed with what they did.
They don't need land to be productive. It's a wonderful creative.
Why
means of creating wealth.
don't they need? Of course, everywhere you need land to be productive. Intelligence. I love your concept of intelligence, but intelligence alone, in the economic sense, is not enough to create value. You need raw materials. Without raw materials, you cannot create economic value. There's no chance.
One question.
Please.
Why is land also wanting to be taken over?
Why is land wanted to be taken over?
Why war's been fought over.
Land by itself has no desire.
Kisya, Deborah, can you help me?
No. And there's one little thing about real estate here in America. You can buy a piece of property, but you don't have the rights of the underneath nor the above.
That's wrong. In Georgia's sense,
You can sell air rights.
No, you can't tell what's underneath.
now if you we're having a course.
I'd like to know how that came about.
Maggie, we're having a course, and the two young ladies in the back there, Deborah and Kisya, they are teaching this course. It's a human rights course, and in the history of Western philosophy, to my knowledge, the debate about air rights, water rights, natural resources rights was first handled by Herbert Spencer, one of the great philosophers of the 19th century, and Henry George. And that book is called The Perplexed Philosopher, and that's the book, that's the textbook, is the basis of our human rights course. And the sum of it is, we're going back to all human beings have a right to live, and this right to live cannot be guaranteed unless...
People don't have the right to live.
Well, that's exactly what's wrong with it. That's exactly what's wrong with our planet. You have enough productive capacities and enough technology to give air, food, shelter and clothing to the world population 10 times over. No economist debates this. We have enough productive capacities, we have enough resources. Nobody is debating that in their right mind. What we don't have is proper distribution. We don't want We don't want command economy. We don't want a state, a big brother who looks over our shoulder and mucks up the free market. That is something that Lenin and Stalin tried, and it did not work. It crashed. It crashed majestically.
You have a system of taxation that is unique in terms of what is, and is that not relevant? And is it relevant politically now in the year 2010?
No. There are fairy tales and myths in such about holding the ability to feed the people, to be able to control them. They have to do that before.
I love.
And they keep the silos filled, and they won't distribute.
I love fairy tales, Maggie, but not in economics. I love fairy tales.
Have we always had a situation where there was a surplus for everybody, or has there been a gain through the technological extension of consciousness and our ability to provide life support for the people, and has the greater number of people who could be at the level of capability could be seen to be halves within an ecological context increase through time on a percentage basis for the evolving population of the world? And if that is the case, did we cross the 50% mark and come out of the historical pattern to one that's new and new dawning that we're not paying attention to? And is George relevant to that?
This is the question I've been waiting for all evening. These are your long questions that make little mini dissertations. Thank you. I have.
I also have another one in reserve, so you're doubly rich. So you have more resources.
What can we do in the present situation? How can we remedy the present situation? How is George relevant for our situation right now?
Even with fundamental change.
And what has fundamentally changed at the level of capability, other than the fact that the weapons seem to be species lethal? What is being equally significant?
Okay, let's
on the living side?
let's go back to Thomas Malthus, who says population growth outgrows subsistence. We as a human species are, you said, species lethal. One of the early social Darwinists is Malthus, who says we as a species populate so fast that our ability to feed ourselves doesn't keep pace with it. That's Malthus. And that's a big lie. That's a big lie. And why is it a big lie? It's not that we cannot feed ourselves while we grow in population. The point is that there's a stranglehold on nature, and that goes back to the Western powers chipping Pocahontas and the early First Nations on Manhattan with $24 and a couple of baubles. The concept was nature cannot be owned. Like for the ancient Egyptians, for the ancient Mesoamericans, for all the ancient high cultures, for all the ancient natural cultures, the concept of owning nature was as absurd of saying you own your mother and you sell your mother. A guy as depraved as Hitler would not have come up with the idea, I sell my mother and you can cut my mother apart into 20 different pieces. That's the modern mindset. That's the mindset. It was wrong. It's wrong. That part of nature, of civilization, is wrong from the get-go. So what we have to do is we have to remember we may be spiritual, we may be intelligent, we may be all these wonderful things, but we are also part of nature. If we do not honor nature, hi Gloria, how are you? If we are not part of if we are not clear on that we're part of nature, and we're doing what we're doing in the Gulf right now, we don't have any planet left to live on.
What we're doing where?
In the Gulf.
In the Gulf.
The oil spill. And there's a wonderful short story by Conan Doyle. It's called The Earth Screams, and it's not Sherlock Holmes, it's Professor Challenger. And the story goes something like, they want to drill below a certain surface of the Earth, I don't know what it is, 2 miles or something. And Professor Challenger is one of the early representatives, he's a geologist, he's one of the early representatives of the Gaia theory, which holds that the Earth is a living organism,
Right.
and that the Earth can be hurt, and that the Earth is sensitive, and that if you if you mishandle the earth and the resources and the land to a certain degree, the earth will revolt. And Professor Challenger goes before the press and he gives press conferences and he says, if you drill this oil hole so deep, it's going to be, it's like a sea creature that has under a hard carapace has a soft nervous system. And the moment that nervous, I mean, it's a little bit utopian, it's a science fiction, but the moment that nervous system is hit, the earth is going to do all kinds of things to get rid of these kind of this kind of torturing.
Which is also the religion of the American Indians.
Yes. Now, when you had the volcano, this unpronounceable volcano in Iceland erupt on April 15th, it was like, I don't know, they had some white magicians or some brujos, biancos in Iceland. Everybody was on Iceland because of the hedge funds. Everybody said, okay, Iceland has a population of 300,000. They owe like $20 trillion or something to the investors around the world. So it was like the answer of the Icelandic spirits to say, okay, let's ground half of world aviation for a week. Let's see how that works. If we do not realize that we are part of nature, we are underwriting our own funeral checks.
Yeah, of course.
And the only way we can recapture prosperity is nature on principle is not stingy. Nature on principle is abundant. You don't have a mother that has 2 babies or 3 babies and then can't give milk. There's not enough milk. There's an abundance of milk. Yeah? You have a fruit tree that has so many fruits that 1, 2 or 3 people or a small group of people can easily live on this. So this whole, if you ask, now we come into neoclassical economics. The lie of neoclassical economics is any kid who went to school and learned neoclassical economics will say, what's the definition of economics? It's scarcity management. It's management of scarce resources.
That's usually the definition of economics.
That's an eyewash. It's a complete eyewash because what it does, you have the privatization, you have the monopolization, you have the speculators who take the resources and the power of nature and privatize it. Like they're doing, it's the genome, they're trying to now privatize the very genetic code of our species. So you have one guy who owns the genetic code of our species, so we all have to pay for him if we want to reproduce. This is absurd. This makes Hitler look like a choir boy. So
how are the resources owned, or how are the resources in the distribution of?
Harold, how is the air owned we're breathing in? It's not owned, we're just in it. It's like a fish swimming in the water. The fish doesn't think he has to pay like royalties to somebody just to swim in the water. That's absurd.
It's simple chemistry. All living things ingest oxygen and expel carbon dioxide.
Thank you.
All plants,
Thank you.
All plants
Thank you.
ingest CO2 and exhale through stomata at the bottom of the leaf oxygen.
Thank you.
As long as both plants and living things are in balance,
It's
the
a, it's
material
an,
will continue.
Thank you. It's a natural trade-off, and we have to respect this natural trade-off. And if we do not respect natural law, we are working on our own extinction. Now, if we study natural law and we do respect it, and we we organize our global economic system around natural laws, we will prosper. We will heal.
And what economic policy would the natural law say to our political leaders at the time of 2010? What would natural law tell them? What would we structure? What would be the reports of the Dodd Commission and so forth where the political leaders are meeting and discussing what we've inherited?
Thank you. Get away from that fixation on finance. The boys who put us into this mess, they don't have to be bailed out. There's no company that's too big to fail. There's a I don't know if I want to use this at this point. There is a principle. The first species that was too big to fail was the dinosaurs. They're gone. They had pea brains, and they had grown into such a conglomerate that their intelligence couldn't support them anymore. So now if multinational corporations reach that stage, what is it? The yes men who went on before the press and they said, hey, the the Bhopal, the pump company that caused Bhopal, they're paying $20 billion or something, and they thought it was funny, and the shareholders or the management of the company didn't think it was funny.
Died out in the evolutionary process. There was a process of new speciation that appears, which we became 200,000 years ago, newly to the planet. Most of the time we heard wasn't abundant. People were wandering around, running around from leopard. They were going to eat it with regularity. We were prey. Nature isn't some abundant, beautiful thing that is just bountiful and everything like that. It took application of technology and consciousness and ability to transform the environment into a predator. Whether we're going to blow it all up, now that we have that capability, or whether we're going to maybe liberate them by some economic way of distributing things appropriately where you can clear the market, people have the ability to live a life of leisure and be concerned with the goods of civilization might be at hand. But what is the policy that would bring that about?
Okay, you are arguing now, Harold, from the standpoint of a neoclassical economist, and you're saying there is no such thing as abundance. We have to work hard to create abundance.
No, I think that there has not been abundance until about 1970 in terms of our capability.
That's Buckminster Fuller. We have discussed that a number of times. The air that you're breathing is abundant as long
Air is a very real thing, yeah.
until we mess up the world oceans were abundant. My father became an ecologist when he was sailing across the Atlantic, and he saw big lumps of oil in the 60s and 70s.
Are you optimistic for the human prospect for our grandchildren? Or do you think we're going to blow it up rather than liberate? We're either going to liberate humanity from the scourges of the system we've inherited out of history, or we're going to annihilate it.
That's a great. That's
We
a.
have the capability to do both. How do we liberate them within an ecological context? What's the economic policy? And who is advancing that? What is the theory behind it? What's the theory behind George who would liberate humanity within an ecological context in a new, maybe punctuated equilibrium, new relationship to the cosmos at the end of an evolutionary track for 200,000 years, which we are going through like a bird?
Your questions are so highbrow, Harold, that I have to answer in book form. I have to give a 300-page book to you for this. As a summary? Yes, I am. In an extent, in a summary, what does the mother eagle mother do to its young ones? At a certain point, when the instinct tells her that they are ready, she kicks them out of the nest, and they have to fly, and they will never capture their ability to fly, which is innate, which is ingrained, which is in their DNA, until the mother kicks them in the butt and kicks them out. And I think nature is at the point of doing this to us right now. It is saying, if you human species don't shape up, I'm just gonna
Kick you out.
Blew up.
And George has a prescription.
Yes, he has.
What in summation is it? What
Tax land, not production.
Thank you. Now say it. Tax land and not production.
Yes.
Tax only land.
Yes.
Right, it's a single tax argument.
Yes,
Is it
yes,
Ron Paul?
yes.
Is Ron Paul?
I don't know, Ron Paul, but that's the argument. These jerks who are saying that we have to roll back civil liberties, that's something I want to have nothing to do with. Nothing.
But it's also more than that. It's sorting out what belongs to humans. What humans create, that belongs to them. And the earth, the planet wasn't created by humans.
No.
So
That's
we
a good
have-
point. The planet was not created by us. That's a very good point. So we have to respect what we found.
Yes.
Maggie.
Interrupt with a big hello.
Speak up, Margaret, if you're going to talk, because of the microphone. You're on candid camera.
Speaking up. All right. Have we not learned in the last 2 weeks that we are just part of the of the part of land? That billions of dollars have been failed by one little itty bitty stupid volcano that decided to shoot us wad?
That was my point. That was precisely my point. We are at mercy. We are at mercy of nature because we are part of nature.
Blown down.
Yes?
Everything was blown down.
Yes.
And my goodness gracious, when old Yellowstone, Old Faithful, blows its top, let me tell you, nature will take half of the northern continent out of its pain.
Thank you, Maggie. That's the point I've been trying to make for the entire evening. And in printing money, and pumping money into the economy, that's not the way to solve these things.
Why are they doing it if it doesn't solve anything? Evidently, people are making money off.
Are they profiting from this? Are they profiting from this? Are somebody profiting from this? Yes?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're trying to make everything low so they can buy everything up, so then the prices could go up again.
Now my favorite...
Trying to herald how Miami Beach was built. Miami Beach was about from this desk to that staircase. And
That's pretty small.
B.B. Rebozo and his Spiro Agnew and his old boys decided that we're going to make Miami Beach. And the huge construction of engineers and such getting ground and gravel and sand to make Miami Beach, as beautiful as it is today, cost billions.
Of course, it's an artificial construct. Now,
And so, same thing after the 1938 hurricane that hit Rhode Island or West Hampton, destroyed the houses and such. They did it again, as if a disaster would not strike again on a pattern of destruction that has been known forever. Hello.
there's a nice metaphor for greed that always comes to me when we're talking about greed.
Greed.
King Midas.
Oh, yes, yes.
King Midas died of malnutrition because everything he touched was turned to gold, and so when he was trying to eat something, it turned to gold, and he died of starvation. Now the modern day, that's a legend, Greek legend, Aristide. The modern day equivalent is Howard Hughes, one of the richest men of the 20th century. He died of malnutrition because he was paranoid that his entourage would poison him, probably with some justice.
You mean you?
Howard Hughes, yes. Howard Hughes died of malnutrition. So two of the richest men in world history realized that they can't eat money. That's one of the first lessons you learn in classical economics. Study classical economics and the world will become a better place. That's mine.
Alexander the Great died from poison.
What
And they
policy?
said it was medicine.
How are we going to get out of this economic mess?
Yeah, what policy would you recommend to Mr. Obama if he was here and his entourage?
We have a colleague who worked on the Obama campaign, and she had access actually.
What
That's
would you recommend?
Deborah.
I'd like to hear that.
And why isn't Obama doing it? That's what I
And
want
what
to know.
would you recommend?
Okay, what?
Specifically on
Okay,
that
okay.
idea of tax resources. Don't attack land, but don't talk capitalism.
No, that
That's
has
a big
nothing to do
idea. Is it out? Is it practical?
No. Why doesn't
Why are
the
they taxing labor?
Why doesn't, yeah, that's a foolish idea. That's a completely foolish idea. George would totally deny this. Why does the president not do more? I'm told that the president has more death threats on his head than all the past presidents put together. So in a sense, it has to do with the policy. You remember Jack Kennedy? I happen to like Jack Kennedy. He got killed because he tried to do too much in too little time.
The biggest president that lost more American lives was Lincoln.
Well,
He was also the tallest. He was 6'4" or 6'5" even. Yes, sir.
I think now.
yeah, talk here, Indian talk.
What Harry was talking.
Talk up, everybody.
Please.
Like what Harry questioned you now. It's not only Obama or American government who can handle the situation.
Thank you.
It has to be universal.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bangladesh, India, China, Russia, come together.
But
Otherwise,
the answers
world will
are-
go down. Nature will hit us.
The answers are so simply in the history books. You just have to follow.
The biggest, hugest, largest governments, although they have their dynasties that lasted longest, was China.
Well, they've been around.
How about Egypt?
Ancient Egypt wasn't doing so bad. Ancient Egypt wasn't doing so badly, no?
China beats them all.
China's been here, miss.
No, and even India, as far as nature is concerned,
Look, I mean,
India is
they've
playing
always
dirty.
been people who
But now they are cooperating.
exploit the masses. Look
Now
at
they are cooperating with you.
Okay, why not don't tax labor, don't tax capital?
Don't tax labor, don't tax capital, tax land.
Because why? Yes, because that's a basic.
Politics.
How would it work?
If I come up to this apartment and I have to schlep 30 cases of stones, and I don't have the elevator, I have to take the stairs, I'll be extremely disadvantaged. That's what we're doing with our tax system. The tax system, what's the tax system doing in the so-called Western world or in the North? The tax system is, we are punishing the diligent and we are rewarding the lazy. We're punishing people for doing the right thing and we are rewarding people for doing the wrong thing. Example, wrong incentives. I'm working hard, I get taxed till I'm blue in the face.
Income tax.
I'm capital gains tax, you name it. I'm working hard, I create positions for others. I create a factory, 500 people. I'm taxed till I'm black and blue in the face. In other words, I'm punished till I can't breathe anymore. Now, say our Aunt Sally passes and is Upper East Side Central Park, and let's say we're all second-degree cousins, we all inherit 5 blocks Upper East Side. We go to the Bahamas, sip martinis, and we have the rest of our lives in the poor schnooks who inherited who are on that property, they're paying with their rent for our lifestyles.
A lot of food there. A lot of food.
Yes, now we because I mean, people like Scott Stringer, local politicians, we work with councilmen in the city and so on. People like Scott Stringer understand how important land tax is. So until recently, Manhattan land tax was low. So in other words, our Aunt Sally deal was fine. We could just bleed these poor devils who are in these apartments white and having a grandiose lifestyle. Now Henry George says reverse that picture, just take the hardworking man and give him a tax break, 100% tax break. No taxes, 100%, no taxes on labor, no taxes on capital as long as it's productive capital, not financial. 100% tax break, so that's 200%. And we just tax those people, the Aunt Sally people, who leech of others, who let their lifestyles be paid by others. You tax them 80-90% just for the land speculation. You siphon off the land speculation interest, and then you have a totally changed world economy.
Right.
Okay, could you elaborate a little on that? Where does the money come from? What form of tax? You don't have income tax, and you don't have the tax, property tax. Where does the money come from? I don't quite understand.
Yes, Harold. The trouble is we have been brainwashed for 130 years with the wrong stuff. We always think in economics money is the most important thing. Money is not the most important thing. We can now, with the credit card system, go back to a credit system. Credit precedes money and it will follow money. There was a barter system, then there was a credit system. If we make a gentleman's agreement, we exchange a service between us, which we have often done. You have let me on.
They want to tax that too. They want to tax people who are bartering, and they're doing it actually.
But we're talking, Harold is asking the ideal system. He's asking what would be the good system to get us out of this mess. So we have a gentleman agreement, we have a mutual trust, we have worked together, you have let me on your show, I've given you some access to some literature that has increased the interest on your show. So we have a mutual interest and we have worked well together. So we don't need to have a monetary exchange. You ask me, you say, can you be on my show? You know I'm coming tonight. I know that you're setting something up for me. I can rely on you. This is the position we're going back to. This is the position. You're working with providers, suppliers who have a bona fide history of having provided and supplied what you need, and you can trust them.
It's a good system.
That's what Henry. That's what Henry. And that has to be made worldwide. You have to have Russia, India, United States, Brazil, the large countries, the smaller countries, the different conglomerations in the different parts of the world. They have to reunite around these principles. Yes. Go back to first principles of classical economics. You cannot go wrong. I mean, we have Adam Smith.
You have to identify the people who own the land, and there's a great trepidation to do that.
Well,
because
that's.
the people who own the land today are also, for example, paying your salary. We have to face this. Nobody's paying Harold's salary. So when you say this is a perfect system, it's not quite. You really have to be honest.
I was just talking between the two of us. I was talking between the two of us, and I'm not getting paid for what I'm doing now. This is a gentleman's agreement between the two of us right now.
Most people
This
have to
discussion
be-
is educating us. If I've got some brains, I'll go and educate my people.
No,
It really
I'm saying I'm taking what Kai says very seriously.
Yeah, you've read.
I know you do.
I'm saying that he has answers, but I'm saying in order to put those answers into practice, that's a whole nother step. That means you have to start being not politically correct. That means you have
No,
to
no.
go to
Politics
parties.
is never
You're
correct.
Excuse me?
Politics is never correct. In definition, politics is one of the most dirtiest games.
No,
don't know.
politics just
I don't
means,
know.
politics just means the study of power. So we're talking about power. If we're talking about concepts, I'm saying Harold has some very powerful ideas which Kai called highbrow. Kai is obviously giving us the top information here. These are powerful ideas.
They are.
I'm talking about putting them into action. And this is something I'm constantly asking. I'm exploring that with Harold. I say we can lay it out. You know, thermodynamics, certain principles of nature. But where is the motivation? Where is that moment when one man holds out to another his hand to help? What makes that happen? It's not just people are saying when they're poor, oh, it has to be the rich. But you say if you take a group of people who don't have that much, and you'll even see in that group. I know today, right now, I did a show with a lady whose brain tumor went down when she was given hemp oil.
Right.
Now, hemp oil requires high concentrations of cannabis. And this has a street value because of recreational smokers, which ruin the medicine. It has a high value. So a dealer, if he's going to take a pound and render it for somebody who's got cancer, it means he's going to cut himself away of $20,000 worth of profits.
You think cancer has got
So-
no medicine, ma'am?
No, what I'm just trying
Cancer
to...
has got medicine.
I don't want to
But I am a
distract-
doctor, I don't want to give it to the
I-
world because
I
I'm
don't-
making money.
I don't want to
Let the money come.
I don't want to distract on that. What I'm just trying to say is right now we have a certain economy, we have an illegal substance which fetches a high market. Part of the high price that you're paying is built into the fact that who you're paying it to goes to jail on a regular basis. And so that person feels justified to charge the higher price. So that means that if you have some of this substance, a resource, and we're talking about monopoly on resources, if you want to talk about land, tax the land, you also need, besides the tax on the land, the freedom to grow the product. And so within this group, growers could cut loose some of their product and help those with cancer. This is something that's known in a small circle.
Yeah, it's probably not known to general society
It's not
that
general.
hemp oil will cure
But-
cancer.
but-
That would be something that most people would
Right,
not know.
but it
Yes.
does boil down to principles that Kai is talking about, which is monopoly. By
Yeah.
making it so highly illegal, you're allowing who's ever the strongest thug to control it, which is pretty much the mafia and some UN rules. People can't join, nations can't join the UN unless they have these ridiculous marijuana laws. Ridiculous isn't even the right word, they're draconian. Once you see 11 U.S. patents, you see studies at the University of Virginia, when these studies and these patents are suppressed, then it seems like you have justification for a dangerous substance.
No, you have thank you for that, Paula. You have an example of monopoly coming to its limits in the Gulf with the oil spill. That oil spill is spilling more oil every day than the Exxon Valdez has spilled in its entirety. So there you have a monopoly situation. You have BP, you have the monopolists who are befouling our planet to a degree that becomes lethal. And they have to come to terms with that and clean that up, and we have to the worldwide the awareness is growing. Thanks, we need change. The awareness is growing that certain monopolies have to be controlled. They have to be controlled democratically by the world population.
And they will do it, sir.
And because if they don't, that means it's global suicide. It's global suicide. So in a sense, as awful as the situation is, it's putting the finger in the wound and it's saying, if we don't clean our act, if we allow these kind of monopolies, we are endangering our very species' existence.
Monopoly of capital ownership? Or
Monopoly of this oil resource. The oil was not made. The oil was not made by the company that's exploiting it. British Petroleum did not make the oil. That's a natural resource. They should pay a user's fee for that, and they should.
User's fee to a government.
They should be. They should have to ask a democratically controlled government or a world institution or world parliament whether they can, and to what degree, and with what safety measures they are allowed to exploit this resource. And if they
like a Tobin tax that Tobin has suggested, or are you
Tobin was one of the 19 people who came out for George. There are 20. Tobin is one of the economists, one of the Nobel Prize-winning economists who came out for Henry George's theory. There are 19 when Gorbachev. When Russia opened, there were 19 Nobel Prize-winning economists who wrote a letter to Gorbachev trying to get Russia to change to George's system, and Tobin was one of them. Yes.
But it didn't happen.
It didn't happen because the monopolists got in there and they said, "Oh, we're going to do the same thing that you're doing in the United States." You had another country that was exemplary as far as Georgism is concerned for about 100 years, from the 1890s to the 1990s. New Zealand was an exemplary, almost a paradigmatic country for George's theory.
Okay, really?
Yes, it was. And then they said, "Oh, let's forget it, let's deregulate, let's follow the American model." And they had practically no unemployment, they had no environmental devastation, and they had high productivity. And now they have high unemployment, they have environmental devastation, and they have the financial mess that we have. Because the last 10, 20 years, they try to imitate what the United States is doing. That's what Stiglitz is calling hedge fund envy.
Yeah.
The little countries are trying to cash in on the big countries. The little neighborhood banks that have been honest, they're looking at these big gamblers on Wall Street and they want to cash in on the big profits, and that's why we're in the mess in which we're in.
Any other examples besides New Zealand you just want to that
You-
follows George or
you-
relates
no-
to
no-
Tobin? That's interesting. Tobin was in favor of a
But
George's.
these monopolists, I mean, you're just generalizing, but you've got to be specific here. Was it Soros who's the one who is the monopolist who didn't allow Russia to make that transition?
Well, there are a couple. As I said, the monopolists went in there and prevented Russia from doing the right thing. You have in the Scandinavian countries, in parts of Canada, you have some of Georgism implemented, in degrees, not completely. We're working with a guy. I'm on the board of our publisher, Robert Chakma Foundation, with one of the leading members of the Canadian Greens. The Canadian Greens nationwide, don't nail me down, I think 10 years ago, adopted the George's platform. So you have worldwide an increase of Papandreou, the guy who has to deal with the mess in Greece. Papandreou, not on the English websites, but on the Greek websites, has a speech where he extols George as one of the great economists. So I have a Greek student teacher who is just pulling out this information, who's going to write an article on the leading politicians in Greece who follow or trying to follow the George's model. Now it's the 13th hour, it's too late. They have to clean up the mess that the people before him left there.
But
How do we loosen the control of the monopolists on the rest of society?
And
How
who has
do
been?
we stop them?
That's what's the saying? The last shirt has no pockets.
The last show.
The last shirt has no pockets. George Soros, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they're mortal like you and I. They're going to go when they're going with not a nickel.
Right.
So whatever they're doing, they're coming to a limit. And sometimes people, when they have a near-death experience, or people when they realize, okay, their life is limited, they mend their ways. Now, I don't want to discuss reincarnation tonight, but I want to just say as a working hypothesis, I want to introduce that into the discussion. Let us say reincarnation existed. Hinduism says it does, Buddhism says it does, the Kabbalah says it does, the esoteric Christianity of the first century's Gnostic Christianity says it does. Now, I don't want to discuss that, but let's say as a working hypothesis, let's say it did exist. Let's say we reincarnate. Let's say the soul is immortal.
Then you can will your money to yourself?
Wait. I'm going to the other side of that. I'm saying then we will be the succeeding generations who have to clean up the planet. If we had that knowledge, if we knew that the soul is immortal, if we knew that the reincarnation is a fact, then we are the ones who have to clean up the mess that we, the earlier generations, created.
Yes, but we don't have it as an established fact.
I'm just using it as a working hypothesis.
Well, that would be interesting that religion has tried to impose morality on people and see how far that has gone.
Wrongly so, to an extent.
Yeah.
Arstide.
Speak up.
Yeah,
Speak up loud.
recently the Congress, I don't know if it was both houses, passed, just a few days ago, passed a lot of financial reform.
Yeah.
Do you know any of the details of that?
Have I read the bill? No.
No. Does anyone know any of the details of that?
No, it's moving in the right direction.
Financial reform bill.
Well, that leads us back to the earlier part of the discussion. This whole age of deregulation, there were several presidents implicated. It was the Laffer curve. Laffer says cut taxes, which is fine. George says cut taxes too. Reaganomics was really Arthur Laffer.
Yeah.
I mean, Reagan couldn't distinguish economic theory from a horse's behind. But that's okay. Let's say Reaganomics. It was Reagan. It was Bush the first. It was Clinton. It was Bush the second. And what Obama is going to do, we will know in 3 years or in 7 years. Now, that whole deregulation period is based on the fallacy that money is wealth. Money is not wealth. Money has no economic value whatsoever. King Midas couldn't eat gold. Howard Hughes died of malnutrition. So money is like your passport picture, like any kind of sign. Money is indicative of wealth, but it's not wealth in itself. So this whole idea that we can pull ourselves out of the swamp by our bootstraps is nonsense. That defies natural law.
Isn't money a claim on wealth?
Money is a claim on wealth, but if nobody is producing wealth, now in 1923, the hyperinflation in Germany or in the Great Depression, you had a full stop or near full stop of a whole country, or God forbid we have a full stop of the global economy. 6, 7, 8 years ago we had the summer outage, power outage. Some of my teachers, Stefan had to walk 6 hours from Lower Manhattan to Rego Park.
Wow.
Now imagine, God forbid, imagine we have a complete stop of production for reasons which we don't need to elaborate here. Like a power outage. Like let's say the peak oil people are right, and one day on day X the last drop of oil comes out of our pumps. And then what? What are we going to do? We go back to windjammers, we go back to air balloons, we go back to horse buggies, but we have to be prepared. If we don't have a plan B, we're going to be at mercy, we're going to be at hostage. Every age had a succession of another age. You have in the ancient Indian system, you have the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and so on, Kali Yuga, and then it comes back to the Golden Age. You have the Bronze Age, you have the Iron Age, and so on, and now we have the Oil Age, and we bozos think the Oil Age has no end. Everything has an end. Everything mortal, everything material has an end. So we are saying the Oil Age is infinite, indeterminate. That's nonsense. So if we know that things are finite, then we can prepare for the post-finite. But we're not doing this. We are like imbeciles. We're relying on this one resource. We're like every investor counselor is telling you, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We have worldwide put all our eggs in the oil basket. Imagine on the day, thank you, oil and coal. Imagine on day X, the last a lump of coal and the last drop of oil has evaporated. What are we doing then? We're going back to nature, which isn't so bad. I mean, we are nature. We are forced to go back to nature.
The power elite will mobilize armies and possibly murder millions and millions of people.
But the power elite is in itself mortal. Hitler died. Hitler was not immortal.
They conserve their resources while they're getting rid of hundreds of millions of other people.
Also, you'll have such political chaos that they will come to unleash the weapons, which are the only thing that
according to this book, the Council on Foreign Relations is really running the world. Not the Trilateral Commission, and not the Bilderbergers, but the Council of Foreign Relations, which is composed of a lot of these people.
Fortunately, they are not infallible, and fortunately, they are not immortal in their physical state.
I understand that, but
You wanted to say something.
holding on to the nail.
I got a lot of them on the show.
I just wanted to mention today, Danny Schechter raised thousands of dollars at WBAI, pushing his new documentary, Plunder.
Yeah.
And that's what this system is about.
Thank you.
Plunder.
He raised it for himself?
The lead story, one of the lead stories on today's New York Times was that the government has curtailed its funds for daycare for mothers, so that they're forced to quit work to take care of their children, because there are no more daycare facilities. And the public has to wake up and realize that somebody like Bernie Madoff is the rule,
They're on the table
not the
there.
exception. And the only reason Bernie Madoff is in jail is he robbed his own kind.
Now he got
Like
caught.
Mr. Zuckerman. If he robbed you or I, he would still be walking around, like so
Josh.
many crooks we know.
Josh,
Well, he's probably a front man for Bloomberg.
did he raise money for his own thing? Or
No,
for
he
VAI?
raised the money for WBAI.
Somebody ought to raise money for
So he
Schechter
raised
because he can't
thousands
keep
of
his rent. Somebody
We
should
go to the
guide
walk
Schechter
together.
now.
And then he mentioned that the left is not seriously coping with what has to be done.
Okay,
The
Kai
same
is-
thing Professor Channer's.
We
like.
gotta get a little,
Let us this
Kai's drawn a little,
let-
see, it's like, abstract art.
let this be the final diagram.
Stick to it.
Let this be the final diagram of the night.
Okay.
How sustainable is this as an economic system? A man walks down the street, he gets his pocket picked. Now, while the pickpocket is picking the first man's pocket, his pocket is getting picked, and so on in the circle.
Yeah.
And now we're back with Greek. This system is called kleptocracy. How sustainable is that as a system? How sustainable is that as a system? What is the increase, the general increase of economic value in the system? Zero. And that's where we're at right now, and we have to go back to production, and we have to go back to nature.
It would be sustainable. Thank God.
On this happy note, we've been on for 2 hours, and I think my capacity is about done for.
All right, thanks a lot, Kai. Let's give him applause.
Thank you very much. I still have a book for you, or from you.
She's read that book like really, right?
Yes, you're doing great promotion for us. Thank you.
And John is here now.
Look at this book. I gave that to to Harold. That has our film stuff in it. Thank you.
No, right, John, and his friend, and Joe is taping this diligently. I don't know if the stream got going. He's reading the Bilderberger. ¿Qué es eso? Eso is the tape, or the DVD. What?
I would like to have a copy of it.
Oh,
I asked.
copy of his DVD.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it possible to get him a copy of the DVD?
I will take
And
out
you
the
got a
check.
big checkbook? Do you have copies of
No.
This is.
That's like my next to the last copy. I gave it to Harold, but Harold can share it.
Yes.
Oh.
If you give it to me, I'll take copies of this and return back the original plus 2-3 more.
Are you sure you will? 2 or 3?
5. 5.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody.
Yes.
So let's see if I can get this out before I can. So, good to see you. Your program was great today. I'm waiting to do it tomorrow. Okay, good. It's getting better and better. Your program's getting better. It really is getting better and better. You really understand. With the psychedelic.
People are so stupid.
Joe, in order to get it, I have here. Joe?
Which interruption? Everybody has a different perspective. I would like to hear your but I have been trying to promote the idea of public talking out loud. It's good. I mean, Deborah. All these wonderful people. Here's the same show. How do I describe it? Alternative artists. He's been doing video.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Any important
I'll take it with the government house. It's close to my place. Oh, okay. Did you drive? No, sir.
Train. Okay, everybody. Okay. Over and out.
I'll see you.